Most people were taught the same story about how business works. You have an idea, you build a product, you sell that product, you grow, simple, clean, logical. But here's what that story leaves out. Some of the most valuable, fastest growing, and most financially dominant companies on the planet have never built a product in the traditional sense. They don't manufacture anything. They don't stock shelves. They don't own the thing they're selling. And in many cases, they don't even employ the people doing the work. And yet right now, today, these businesses are worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They process trillions in transactions. They employ, or rather, they don't employ, millions of people. And they sit at the center of industries that existed long before they arrived, capturing the majority of the value while taking on a fraction of the risk. Welcome to Mizora, the channel that exists to show you how money and power actually work. Not the version from the textbook, the version that's already running while most people are still trying to understand the previous model. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how businesses grow without a product, why this model produces some of the highest profit margins in the history of commerce, and what it tells you about where value actually comes from in the modern economy. Let's get into it. Number 1, platforms. The most obvious place to start and the most misunderstood. When people talk about platform businesses, they usually talk about tech companies. But the logic of the platform predates the internet by centuries. A platform is simply a business that creates value by facilitating a connection between two or more groups of people, without owning the thing being exchanged. Think about what Airbnb actually is. It does not own a single hotel room. It does not own a single apartment. It does not employ a single cleaner or host. What it owns is the connection between people who have space and people who need it. And for facilitating that connection, it takes a percentage of every transaction. In 2023, Airbnb generated over $9 billion in revenue. Its asset base, compared to a traditional hotel chain of the same scale, is almost nothing. Marriott International, which serves roughly comparable numbers of guests, carries tens of billions of dollars in property assets on its balance sheet. Airbnb carries almost none. Same market. Radically different financial structure. The same logic applies to Uber, which does not own cars, to Etsy, which does not make crafts, to the App Store, which does not write software. The platform model is the most capital-efficient business structure ever invented, because the people providing the actual product or service bear all of the asset cost, all of the inventory risk, and most of the liability. The platform takes the margin. Number 2, exchanges and marketplaces. This is the platform model taken to its most abstract extreme, and it produces some of the most extraordinary profit margins in the world. The New York Stock Exchange does not own any of the stocks traded on it. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange does not own any of the commodities whose futures it trades. Visa and MasterCard do not own the money moving through their networks. What all of these companies own is the infrastructure of exchange itself, the pipes through which value flows, and they charge a toll on every transaction that passes through. Visa processes over $14 trillion in transactions per year. Its operating margin consistently exceeds 60%. For context, most manufacturing businesses operate on margins between 5 and 15%. Visa's margin is higher because it has almost no cost of goods. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't store anything. It just maintains the network and collects a fraction of every dollar that moves through it. Think of it like owning the road, not the cars. You build the road once, you maintain it, and then you charge every vehicle that drives on it forever, whether there are 10 vehicles a day or 10 billion. The same model applies to stock exchanges, commodity markets, real estate listing platforms, and increasingly to data marketplaces. The entity that owns the infrastructure of exchange doesn't need to care what is being exchanged or who is exchanging it. They just need the transaction to happen. Number 3, franchises. McDonald's is one of the most recognized brands on earth. Most people think of it as a fast food company. What it actually is, financially, is one of the largest real estate and licensing businesses in the world that happens to be associated with hamburgers. Here's how the model works. McDonald's does not operate most of its restaurants. Individual franchisees do. They pay for the build-out, hire the staff, manage the operations, and absorb the day-to-day risks of running a food business. McDonald's, in turn, collects a royalty on every dollar of revenue those restaurants generate, typically around 4 to 5%, plus rent, because McDonald's owns or controls the land beneath a significant portion of its franchise locations. The franchisee runs the business, McDonald's owns the land the business sits on, and the brand the business operates under. In any given year, McDonald's generates more revenue from rent and royalties than from selling food. It is a business that grows by licensing its system to other people and then sitting back and collecting a percentage of everything they produce. Think of it like writing a song once and then collecting royalties every time someone plays it, except instead of a song, it's a frying technique and a logo. The franchise model is how you scale a business to 40,000 locations across 100 countries without directly managing any of them. Number 4, insurance. Insurance is one of the oldest and most misunderstood financial products in existence. And at its core, it is a business that sells something that may never have any physical existence at all. When you buy a car insurance policy, you are not buying a car. You are not buying a repair service. You are buying a promise, a contractual commitment that if something bad happens, money will flow to you. The product is the promise itself, and the economics of selling promises at scale are extraordinary. An insurance company collects premiums from thousands or millions of policyholders. It invests that money, this is called the float, and earns returns on it while it waits to pay out claims. If it has priced its policies correctly, the total premiums collected exceed the total claims paid, generating an underwriting profit. And on top of that underwriting profit, it has also earned investment returns on the float. Warren Buffett has described insurance float as one of the most powerful financial mechanisms ever invented. And Berkshire Hathaway's insurance operations have provided him with essentially free money to invest for decades. The product insurance sells is a probability calculation. The better your probability calculations, the more profitable your product. And your product costs nothing to store, nothing to ship, and nothing to manufacture. It exists only as a number in a contract. Number 5, software as a service. Before software, if you wanted to sell a product, you had to make it, store it, ship it, and replace it when it broke. Software changed everything. You write the code once, you host it on servers, and then you charge people to access it, monthly, annually, forever, without ever manufacturing another unit. The marginal cost of serving one additional customer is, for most software companies, effectively zero. Salesforce does not build anything for each new customer it signs. It does not manufacture a CRM system and ship it to their offices. It grants them access to software that already exists, running on infrastructure that is shared across thousands of clients. Every new customer that signs up adds revenue with almost no added cost. This is why software gross margins routinely exceed 70 to 80%, and why the SaaS model, software as a service, has become the dominant business structure of the last 2 decades. But here's the part most people miss. The real product of a SaaS company is not the software. It is the switching cost. Once a business runs its operations on a particular software platform, once its data is there, its workflows are built around it, its employees are trained on it. The cost of moving to a competitor is enormous. The software becomes invisible infrastructure, and invisible infrastructure, once embedded, generates revenue almost indefinitely with minimal resistance to price increases. You don't negotiate hard with the company that owns the pipe your business runs through. Now, I want to pause here for a second because I know what some of you are thinking. These are just tech companies. This is just the modern economy, and to some extent that's true. But the deeper pattern here is not about technology. It is about the fundamental shift in where value is created and captured. For most of human history, value was created by making things, by taking raw materials and transforming them into something useful. The businesses on this list do something different. They create value by organizing things, by reducing friction, establishing trust, building infrastructure, and positioning themselves at the point where exchange happens. And the entity that controls the point of exchange doesn't need to own what's being exchanged to capture enormous value from it. Number 6, licensing and intellectual property. Qualcomm is a company most consumers have never heard of. It does not make smartphones. It does not sell phones. What it does is hold patents on the fundamental technologies that make modern smartphones work, including key elements of 4G and 5G wireless communication, and it charges every smartphone manufacturer in the world a royalty to use those technologies. Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi, every Android manufacturer, they all pay Qualcomm every single time they sell a phone for technology they cannot work around and cannot replicate. In a recent year, Qualcomm's licensing division generated approximately $5 billion in revenue on operating margins above 70%, from a product that is entirely intangible, requires no manufacturing, no shipping, no inventory, and no customer service. It is a royalty machine. The same model operates across pharmaceuticals, entertainment, fashion, and industrial technology. The Walt Disney Company earns billions every year from licensing its characters to manufacturers who produce the actual toys, clothing, and products. Disney designs the character once, other people make the products, Disney collects the percentage. Number 7, financial intermediaries. Banks do not lend their own money. This is perhaps the single most important misunderstanding about how the financial system works, and it is almost never clearly explained. When a bank gives you a mortgage, it is not reaching into a vault and handing you cash that someone else deposited. Through a mechanism called fractional reserve banking and money creation, banks effectively create the money they lend and then charge you interest on it for the next 30 years. The product a bank sells is credit, the permission to use money that did not previously exist in the form you're borrowing it. And the spread between what they charge you for that credit and what they pay others for deposits is their margin. They are intermediaries between savers and borrowers, taking a cut of every transaction in both directions. Add to this the fees, the trading operations, the wealth management divisions, and the investment banking arms, and you have an institution that generates billions in revenue from the movement and management of money. It doesn't own, for purposes it doesn't control. In markets, it did not create. Here's what ties every single one of these businesses together. None of them make a product. All of them own a position in a network, a position on an exchange, a position between a buyer and a seller, a position inside a system that other people depend on. And once that position is established, once the platform has enough users, once the franchise has enough locations, once the software is embedded deep enough, once the patent portfolio is broad enough, the business almost defends itself. The moat is not the product. The moat is the position. This is the most important shift in economic thinking of the last 50 years. We were taught that value comes from production, from making things, from effort and labor and raw materials transformed into goods. And that logic still applies to enormous parts of the economy. But the businesses that have generated the most wealth in the modern era are not the ones making the most things. They are the ones sitting in the most strategically irreplaceable positions in the systems through which things flow. In the next video, I'm going to go even deeper into the business models that have no right to work by any rational logic. Companies that broke every conventional rule of economics and became billion-dollar enterprises precisely because they ignored what they were supposed to do. You do not want to miss that one. Subscribe if you haven't yet. It's free, and it ensures this kind of content keeps reaching you without you having to go looking for it. The world makes a lot more sense when you know where to look. I'm Mizora. See you in the next one.